Okay, we are back and we are continuing a couple little sort of short series on why choose certain languages. We talked about languages in general, choosing a development language, and some of the things that you might personally need to consider as part of making that choice. But now we wanted to get into some of these and give you a little bit more background, maybe a little bit of a reason why you would choose or not a specific language. You can probably guess by the slide, we're going to talk about Python today. We have sometimes misspelled Python, like we did right here, but that's okay, because Python has become a top language in use and growth the last several years. As we are recording this, it is number one. It has been for a couple of years, and it overtook, in particular, Java a few years ago. It is shifting to become the top language and is continuing to grow. And it has grown from a very small, almost like a very tiny following, almost like a cult-like following, I guess. Initially, it's been around for a while, but early on, it was used for a few different things. It's used in education, but it has grown, particularly once they added Django and some other stuff. Then it has become a steadily growing, useful language throughout. You'll see why, I think, a little bit. And again, we're talking about the pros. We're not going to get into any of the cons about these languages, really. So Python's easy to learn. This is why it sort of came out of being an educational type language. With that, it has grown with a lot of frameworks, supporting code, things of that nature. And it is a language that it just doesn't have at its core a very complex syntax or structure. So it's one of those that that's why you have these frameworks and supporting code, because you have a very solid, easy to understand foundation, but then it is built so that you can build on top of it. Now, like some of the other things we've talked about as languages go, one of the keys is where can you use this? What kind of things can you build with this? Python is great at console applications or headless, where it's just like a script or a utility or something like that doesn't have a UI. But you can also do desktop applications. There's a thing called Python Qt that you can use for just about any kind of, whether it's whatever operating system or platform. Now it's not ported to everything, but it gives you a good way to do a desktop type application. You can build web applications, particularly when you tack on Django. It is a way to quickly build your CRUD type applications, among other things. CRUD being, create, retrieve, update, delete type things, where you just need to do, for example, like a customer relationship app or something, where you just need to store data and be able to list it and find it, sort it, retrieve it, maintain it, things like that. You can build APIs and access, whether you build them or leverage APIs. It has a really good, easy way to build out APIs and whatever level you need to as far as security and access and authorization, things like that. You will see Python used a lot with scraping, with web scraping, and it is good working with whether it's XML, JSON, or anything else. It's really good at spinning through, particularly with the libraries that are out there, spinning through some complex kinds of responses that you might see in a scraper. And it has a lot of cool utilities that are built on Python. Scrapy itself, SCRAPY, is a Python tool and allows you to utilize that and utilize Python to really do some very advanced web crawling. And you will find that often as a sort of like a specialty, maybe a niche kind of way that Python's used. It is object-oriented. It does support object-oriented, but it also makes it very easy to support. You can do pure functional programming. We talked about this in some other cases, like, for example, a Java. But Java at its core, it does sort of, it's a stretch to call it object-oriented, but it does, if you look at it, it has an object. There is no way to do something that is not within a class or an object. So it's built to be an object-oriented language. Python, you don't have to do that. You can just write a couple of lines of code, write a function, you're off and running. It is very easy to use, particularly in the world now of JavaScript and things like that. JavaScript actually can get a little complicated sometimes, a little bit hard to read because you have to deal with the document object, the DOM model, and things like that. Python, you can do straight up simple. It is as close as you can get to probably writing pseudocode for a lot of things. For example, if you wanted to do a if-then kind of structure, just like a little application that just like runs and it says, if the number, get an inputted number, if it's less than 5, print this, if it's greater than 5, print that. It would look almost like pseudocode. The Python is going to look almost like pseudocode. Very straightforward, very simple. It doesn't have, while it does embrace and allow for some of the more advanced topics and approaches to programming and concepts, it's also very easy to just like jump in and get going. It has its, like everything else, it does have its warts. I don't want to make it sound like it's perfect, but as a educational language, it is proven to be a great way to get people into programming. So if you are very new to programming, completely new to programming, Python is going to be a great way to understand and work your way up into fundamentals. It is easy because of the community that's out there. It's really easy to figure out how to do something in Python. You can just search and say whatever it is. And probably now with GPT and things like that, you just ask it and say, how do you write in Python a web scraper? I want to scrape whatever it is, pick a site. I want to scrape Google results, and I want that written in Python. You probably can get it. If you don't have it, if it can't just generate it for you, then the search can probably find you enough examples that you can get it done pretty quickly. And this even includes some like sort of outlier, weird kind of things out there, because Python is used in so many areas. It's used in finance. It's used in big data. It is used in like scientific type stuff. Whatever it is, there is probably some Python that is out there that you can find an example. The problem, if it's been solved, you can find somebody that's done that, and that can help you at least, even if you don't have the exact solution, get a good jump on getting your whatever it is problem solved in Python. There are tons of user groups and communities as well. There's like a lot of frameworks, there's a lot of libraries, there's a lot of extensions, and each of those have some level of a user group or a community around them, or sometimes very small, sometimes it's very big, but they have been, my experience, they're great people, great communities, always looking for ways to help others and to grow the usefulness of the language and the libraries and the frameworks. There are certifications, there are tutorials, there is online content that you can get to learn, whether you want to read a book, whether you want to have somebody do a video, whether you want to read online, whether you want to build an application, sort of a how-to. However you learn, there's going to be a way to do that for Python. They don't really have it's not owned by somebody. Like, for example, Java is owned by Oracle, even though there are a lot of other Java, development kits and places you don't have to go to Oracle, but it's basically the primary vendor. Python doesn't have that. It is free, it's easy to get a hold of, and there is a community that is steadily building it, and it's not doing so in a way that has you in vendor lock or anything like that. As I mentioned, it's free to install. It is cross-platform. It really is something that, for the most part, depending on what you're building, again, like most languages these days, because it used to be harder to deal with, particularly if you have a compiled language, which Python is not. It's interpreted. So it's very easy to jump in, write some code, see what that code does. And you don't have to compile it for a specific platform. You have the interpreter that just executes the code. So you write it, and you can run the same Python code on Windows, on Mac, on Linux. for your web application, for your API, whatever it is, it's the same code. The exception being if if you're utilizing a certain framework or something like that, a library, then you're going to have to make sure you have the right framework and library for whatever it is that you're using. There are several IDEs out there, and it's got really good IDE support. Whether you use there's PyCharm, which is out there, which is a really good IDE that's modern, that has all your typical stuff you'd expect. Visual Studio Code has got they've got a good foundational Python set of plugins, and there's a lot of other extensions and things like that you can use to make it pretty easy to jump in, run your code, see what your code looks like. There are a lot of VM builder type things out there. If you go to like Amazon or Azure or something like that, especially if you do droplets, depending on who your vendors are, there are ways to spin up a whatever version of Python you need environment fairly quickly so that you can have something, get going, and start writing and learning how to code. It is a dynamic language. It's very powerful, and it's really easy to extend. It is built for that. It is built to be something where it's like, here's your tools, take them and do whatever you want, build whatever you want with it, and people have. If you're playing around with Python, you probably want to take a look, just go look at Flask. There's a ton of Flask related stuff. It's a whole family of stuff out there. All of the Flask things are powerful, easy to use, and I'd say pretty slick. If you think of any modern library framework, things like that are cross-platform, that are cross-language, or even that aren't, like Log4j is something. If you're a Java person, or JUnit, yes, there is if you want to go to C#, there's NUnit, and then there's logging, the similar kind of a logging approach. You see the same thing in Python. There are documentation tools, there's testing tools. It is something that everybody that has jumped into it basically has embraced it and said, okay, we're going to take it, we're going to extend it. If you are interested in Python, from our point of view, something we can help out here at Building Better Developers and Developreneur is that we have a lot of YouTube videos on Python. We have the basics, which is really just sort of walking through things within Python. How do you do some of these things? It's more or less aimed at a entry-level developer. We have another series that is aimed specifically at getting a certification in Python, and so it covers all of the things that you see on the certification tests that we use as our basis. This stuff is going to be flowing over to school.developreneur.com as well, so you'll be able to start seeing some of that. Maybe by the time this is here, you'll probably already see some of the getting started Python videos. And there's also out on our blog site, out on developreneur.com. You can find a lot of material there. And some of it is just us sort of like searching the web and pointing you to some good training sites and some other places that you can go, like PacketPub and Udemy and some of those kinds of places where you can go find whatever it is that if you've got like a specific Python skill you want to learn, you can find those out there. So if this is something that you're considering, hopefully this has helped you out and given you some good reasons why you may want to choose Python as the next language you learn, whether you're just getting started or whether this is one of those things where you said, you know what, I'm a master of a bunch of other languages. I've seen a lot of this. There's a lot of jobs. There's a lot of projects. I'm trying to figure out where I want to go next. So maybe Python is a good one, particularly being a number one language. That means that you are most likely going to see that in requests, whether it's for whether you're looking for a job, whether you're looking for projects. People are going to say, hey, we like people that have those skills because it is a language that a lot of people are using to solve their problems. I Hello, this is Rob with Developreneur, also known as Building Better Developers. Wanted to announce that we have school.developreneur.com. Feel free to check it out if you like any of this information, any of the content that we've sent, and you would like to see more. You can come out, you can enroll for free. We have free courses. We've got places for you to get better at just learning a technology, our how-tos. You can work on your business skills. We can help you with becoming a better developer, as in coding and things like that. A lot of the stuff you've seen on YouTube, we also have out at school.developreneur. We just have it in a little more of a educational format and a way for you to track your progress as you move forward becoming a better developer.